Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. It feels kind of good to say that again. It's been a hot minute. I did not die. I did not fall off the face of the earth, nor did this guy that I am joined here tonight. I am Ron Luce, joined by none other than Nick Hudson. Nick, before we talk anything baseball, how are you doing, my friend? Happy Thursday to you.
Happy Thursday to you as well, and to the listeners. I'm doing very well, very well. I hope you're doing well as well. It's been a while. It's felt like it's been a very long time, so I'm looking forward to getting on this mic and just talking some Cubbies baseball.
Yeah, man. Just like the Cubs have been depleted with injuries and just bad luck all season, it feels like Cubs on Taps had the exact same thing happen of
Yep.
just a lot of crazy things happening. I have now reached my third different background this year on this season of Cubs on Tap.
Yep.
This one expects to be largely the same forever. The paint color might change, there might be a couple decorations, but that wall is going to stay for the foreseeable future. But I have since moved. I know you've had a lot going on. Our other three co-hosts have had a ton going on as well. Some livelihood changes, some just life planning events. Joey's getting married soon. A lot of crazy shit going on here at Cubs on Tap, but it feels good to be back on the airwaves talking Cubs baseball. We got 6 games here to talk about, Nick, against 2 perennial powerhouses in Major League Baseball. Cubs took on the New York Yankees at home and then subsequently took on the Los Angeles Dodgers on the road. That series concluded last night. We are here today on the off day talking about everything. And then they have another West Coast series coming up this weekend. I can't really call them West Coast. I guess we'll call them Mountain Range series
Yeah.
because they play the Colorado Rockies this weekend. So we'll talk all things that. But as Daniel Berry Sports Highlights says here in the comment section, hey everybody, happy Thursday. Happy Thursday to you, sir. Feels good. Feels good to get back on the airwaves and talk Cubs baseball. But Nick, let's dive quickly into just the series results, right? At the end of the day, Cubs lose 2 out of 3 to the New York Yankees. They lose 3-0 on Friday, 2-0 on Saturday, but pull out the 2-1 win on Sunday. 2-1 win on Sunday, very notable because it was Jameson Taillon versus Garrett Cole. Those two obviously good friends, as was noted throughout the media over the course of the weekend. They played together, obviously, in Pittsburgh. They came up together in Pittsburgh. First time they ever played against each other, or actually pitched against each other, in the exact same game. And in this case, Jameson Taillon gets the last laugh against the Cy Young winner, Garrett Cole. And then the Cubs go to LA and they turn shit on because they won 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers. Probably should have taken all 3 games in this series. It feels like a common theme that we've talked about ad nauseum this season, Nick.
Yep.
But I want to get your just initial thoughts on this 6-game stretch. Again, really
Sure.
kind of feels like a tale of 2 series in a lot of ways. Obviously, not just because of the teams they played, but the type of baseball that was played by the Cubs themselves.
Yep.
Your thoughts on these 6 games?
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. A tale of 2 series. Looking at the schedule, you knew this was going to be a tough part right here, playing the Yankees and the Dodgers. As said, 2 powerhouses. I thought they handled, obviously, the Dodgers very well. The Yankees, the pitching was there. The runs, the bats just were not coming to life there at Wrigley, which was really disappointing. I had a lot more hope for that series, at least maybe getting 2 out of 3. It was vital to get the 1. So that was really nice to get that close victory with that close margin there. And then a refreshing breath of air to go to Los Angeles, which you don't hear very often, might I add. When the Cubs go to Los Angeles, it's not usually very refreshing, but they really brought it, man. The bats were on fire. And that's really the most, like you said, it's the tale of 2 series. It's disappointing that they couldn't have just half of what they had in the LA series in New York or in Chicago against New York. They would have fared a lot better. Like I said, the pitching was there to at least give you a chance. You score the runs, they held it down. So it was disappointing because when you keep the Yankees to 3 runs, 2, 3 runs, you want to take advantage of that. So that was disappointing. But overall, it's good to see the bats wake up. And it's really good to see guys like PCA just changing the game. Like he brings electric to it. So the series overall, if it was earlier in the season, I'd be ecstatic to go and, you didn't do too well against the Yankees, but you made it up against the Dodgers. But we're so far into this in the wild card race that just one loss now, and you go from 4 back to 5 back, and it's like you're running out of time, or running out of games, and now you're just hoping and praying that other teams fall apart, and that's a bad place to be. And we've talked many times about this exact moment in other seasons, so it's disappointing. But it was overall, it was 2 good series.
Indeed. And we're going to dive into obviously some of the, the nuances, the storylines here. But Nick, you put it perfectly, right? Like, even if they get half the Dodgers production in the New York Yankees series, they win all 3 games in terms of run scoring, right? They went from scoring 2 runs in 3 games against the Yankees to scoring 24 runs in 3 games against the Dodgers. I mean, it was really
unreal,
night and day offensively in terms of what the Cubs were able to do and get done. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. A couple of comments here from Scott that I think are very notable, especially for the Dodgers series. And we'll get to these here, and then we'll rewind and talk a little bit about the Yankees series, Nick. But Scott from Iowa says no Hendricks slander tonight. I have nothing bad to say about Hendricks. 4 1/3 of 2 earned run baseball against the Dodgers. You'll take it every single time. Obviously, he doesn't get the win, unfortunately, because he didn't go 5. Keegan Thompson ultimately got the win in that 10-4 throbbing over the Dodgers. But again, Kyle Hendricks got it done on the biggest stage where you needed him against a really good baseball team. Again, the Cubs, like these weren't 2 series that the Cubs were playing, the poor school of the blind and the poor school of the deaf, right? I mean, this wasn't the Pirates and the Nationals or the Rockies and the Marlins. It's 2 of the best teams in baseball. And really, all things considered, despite your offense really not showing up in the Yankees series, overall, the pitching was good for the most part throughout all 6 of these games. And you're just like, well, son of a bitch, you scored so many runs in LA. It's like, if you could have gotten a couple of them against the Yankees, it would have been nice. But I agree. No Hendricks slander from me tonight, Scott. And he also comes back and says, have the Dodgers fans surpassed Cardinals fans as the worst fans in baseball? I don't know if they've gotten there quite yet, but they've definitely ticked up with the booing of Porter Hodge when he was having the panic attack on the mound. But are we surprised? It's LA. I mean,
I wasn't sure.
All snooty, everybody's, pardon me, everybody. I got allergies like a son of a bitch right now. Everybody's ignorant to life and what happens. And unfortunately for Porter Hodge, I mean, he was okay. All things came to a good ending at the end of the day. But they suck. Honestly, I'm at the point now where, like, unless you're a Cubs fan, I think you're a terrible fan of baseball. But that's just bias kind of bleeding through, really, when it comes to the end of the day. But Nick, speaking of bias, I think everybody was really excited for this New York Yankees series, like all season long. All right, this was one that I remembered circling on the calendar and being like, I want to be at that game. And I originally did. I originally had tickets to Friday's game. I had to get rid of them early in the summer because I had something that came up over this past weekend. But Rizzo's return to Wrigley. We got to see Javier Baez's just a few weeks ago in that Detroit Tigers series. But man, I almost envy anybody that got to be there on Friday. Like, I'm jealous. Like, oh, you got to be there for the moment. Like, and it's honestly, it's probably good I wasn't there. I was watching from 100 miles away, and quite frankly, like, I was crying in the club watching the Anthony Rizzo tribute video. If I was at the ballpark, I would have been sobbing.
You've been a mess.
Tears. Just crying in the bleachers, like hugging my Thai guy because he needs to, like, pat me on the back to say it's okay. It would have been awful, because I think, when we think about all the players that came back from the 2016 core, obviously the big 3 are the guys that everybody focuses on the most, right? And Javi and KB and Anthony Rizzo. But none of them had the impact that Anthony Rizzo had on the city of Chicago because he was here the longest, right? He got here in the winter of 2011. He debuts with the Cubs in 2012. He spends just short of 10 years as really the face of the franchise for this team in one of the greatest eras of Chicago Cubs baseball. And he was the first one dealt when it was all said and done at the end of the Yankees at that trade deadline. So I think this was the one that everybody was the most excited about. And that was the coolest thing about his tribute video, right? Like, I remember seeing the KB tribute video, and of course the play at the end of the World Series, Bryant to Rizzo, the Cubs win the World Series. Of course, that graces his highlight film, the MVP that he won. The multiple All-Star appearances were all great. Javier Baez, the same thing, right? The All-Star appearance, the Mother's Day home run, the stealing home, stealing home in the playoffs, that game one homer against the Giants, the homer in the World Series game 7, like all those iconic moments, the crazy play in Pittsburgh that I think everybody will recount.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, running back.
Like, you had all those baseball moments, and that's why people loved Chris Bryant. People loved Javier Baez, and I think they loved the people that they were too. But nobody had the impact that Rizzo did, because that was the coolest part about his tribute video, right? It was his debut, him being a part of everything, striking out Freddie Freeman, like the light fun stuff, the exciting moments that he had as a baseball player, the 13 pitch at bat against the Cardinals going deep into right field, like all those iconic moments. But then it cut to Lurie's and the work he did with the kids and the impact that he had on those battling cancer the same way he did.
Yep.
And to this day, he's the only player I've ever cried over being traded from a team. And I think all those emotions just came back on Friday. And it was so cool. He got exactly what he deserved in his return. He got his walk-up music every time he went up to that bat.
That was awesome.
That
was great.
Got standing ovations all 3 days.
Yep.
It was the textbook way to say, Anthony, thank you for everything you did.
Yep.
It sucked. It took 2 years because of the schedule just for the Yankees to get back to Wrigley.
Yep.
But what a better weekend for it to happen. And he's happy because the Yankees won 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
But I think every Cubs fan that went to the ballpark, despite them not scoring runs until Sunday, was happy being there because of Anthony Rizzo being on the diamond.
100%. Yeah, it was absolutely. I had goosebumps just watching it, and like you said, just to think about those that were actually there in the moment and feeling that, unbelievable. But he was just such a present on and off the field, and you just don't get that with many guys, to be able to translate what they do on the field to off the field to even more important things that are bigger than baseball. That's such a rarity. And to have a guy like that, he was our captain, like it or not. They never put the C on his chest, which was a damn shame, but he was our captain. And to have him come back, like you said, it was perfect. The way they did it, it was perfect. And I wouldn't expect anything less from what he gave us and what he gave the whole city of Chicago. Quite frankly, we probably owe him even more, but he's always going to be solidified as a Cubs legend. And whenever he comes here, that is probably how he's going to be treated every time. Even when he comes back, he's going to be standing ovations every time, I'm sure.
And I'm sure in the next, let's assume Anthony's got 3 to 4 more years playing baseball, right? Probably very soon after that, he's going to be inducted into the Cubs Hall of Fame.
Yep.
He'll be out in left field with everybody else. I think KB will as well because of just his stretch as a Cub.
Yeah.
But I will say this. He's the only, because I was mulling this over the course of the weekend. I was like, Anthony Rizzo was just different. Like, this wasn't just, because let's be real. The days of guys like Ryan Sandberg and Ernie Banks and even Fergie, yeah, he had 2 different stints with the Cubs, but played a long time in a Cubs uniform. Like, those guys that reach close to 10 years with a team doesn't happen a lot anymore. It's very, very rare. And especially I feel like with baseball and, a sport that's so up and down, a sport that's so, there's so many players that are hot and cold, right? Guys might have a huge dominant 3-year run, but fizzle out. Like think about guys like Matt Kemp. And this isn't, to take a stab or a shot at him because he had a great career, but like his peak was so high, and then he faded away. Like, he had a good, long, big league career, but like he was only really a Dodger for like 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah.
And that felt like an eternity. Anthony Rizzo was here for nearly a decade. He was one of the few true guys that Cubs fans can sit back and go, yeah, he was more or less here for 10 years.
Yep.
And again, that player is so rare in today's day and age. And, like Scott said from here in the comments, like he brought a bunch of kids with cancer to the games while he was there. The kids that he probably had relationships with from his time in Chicago, or even new ones that he met, because when they got in on the off day on Thursday, he went to the hospital.
Yep.
That just it further embodies the guy that he is, and the guy that I think everybody could, and like you said, right? Like so many people refer to the Cubs as us, right? Or because Cubs fans feel like they live and die with the team. But like Anthony Rizzo is the type of player where you can say, yeah, he gave something to us, the fans, just be who he was and what he was to this city and this organization and the people in it. Like it was a welcome return for Anthony Rizzo. And it meant everything, absolutely everything to have him back. But the one thing, Nick, that I was thinking about very, very heavily over the course of the weekend, and I finally got to it, and it came through in some late night Twitter fingers, but I think of any player who donned the Cubs uniform from that 2016 team. To me, Anthony Rizzo is the only one that could justifiably have his number retired, in my eyes. I think you could maybe make an argument for guys like maybe like a John Lester. But to me, because he really found major league success and had the most major league success and was, like you said, right? He was the captain. He was the face of the franchise. To me, the only other flag that can fly on the left or right field foul pole when it's all said and done from those golden era teams is Anthony Rizzo.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I really do. He has to be the one.
He has to be. And like that was, it was a thought that had lingered for a long time. Like I found myself kind of playing those games. Because again, to get your number retired by an organization, you either have to do one of two things. A, be there a long time, or B, have an insane impact while you're there. And he did both. And arguably, he's the only one that really did, right? Because I know a lot of people would be like, well, yeah, Chris Bryant won MVP. Yes, he did. But you could argue that Mark Grace had a better Cubs career. And even Mark Grace doesn't have number 17 flying on the flag.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
But to me, just obviously the championship, multiple gold gloves, a platinum glove, did he win a Silver Slugger? I think he won at least one. I think he got one.
He got one, yeah.
We're gonna quickly confirm that as well. But he's got the accolades behind him to do it. Yeah, he's a one-time Silver Slugger. Just once. Just one time. Isn't that crazy? It was just 2016 that he won a Silver Slugger. But again,
that is crazy.
First base is a hard position to win the Silver Slugger at, though. Let's be real. I mean, how many guys win that? Just you Goldschmidt in the NL. You had, obviously back in the day, not more recently, but you had Pujols in the NL. Like the first base is just such a hard position to win a Silver Slugger at. So the fact he won one of them is fantastic. But like, this is a guy that multiple times received MVP votes. I mean, he finished fourth in MVP voting twice in his career, and then finished in the top 23 other times. I mean, his 2014 to 2019 stretch is some of the best baseball anybody's played in that time period, because he was a 3-time All-Star. Those all came in 14, 15, and 16. In addition to that, he played at least 140 games in every single one of those seasons. His lowest batting average during that time frame was a 273. Otherwise, he was typically in the 280s or even the low 290s. His on-base percentage was never lower than a 376. And his slug was never lower than a 470. He was never worse than an 846 OPS player in any of those given seasons. And on top of it, his strikeout to walk numbers were almost identical in every single one of those years. or at least were within a range where you go, wow, that dude got on base a lot and didn't strike out a ton for how much he got on base. I mean,
Wow.
just listen to these awards in those seasons. 2014, he was an all-star and he finished 10th in MVP voting. In 2014, remember the shitbag Cubs in 2014, who everybody was like, ooh, maybe they're going to get better. 10th, he finished 10th in MVP voting that year.
Wow.
2015, all-star, 4th in MVP voting. 2016, all-star, 4th in MVP voting, Gold Glove, Silver Slugger. I also believe that was his Platinum Glove year. 2017, 13th in MVP voting. 2018, 17th in MVP voting and wins a Gold Glove. 19 wins a Gold Glove. And then he won a Gold Glove again in 2020. Obviously, the 2020 season was shortened. And he, for his standards, was not that great of a baseball player. But that run that he had was electric.
That was wow.
So that's my case. That's my case for number 44 flying on the flagpole at some point in the not so distant future. But Nick, we do have a lot to talk about, so we will push forward, and that is the bats awakening on the West Coast. And this topic kind of sets up our next topic as well. But it was really nice to see Cody slug a little bit in this series. I'm sure that felt really good for him against the Dodgers. Same thing for Michael Busch, right? This is a pair of guys who were castaways, in one form or another, right? Belly just because of a couple of down seasons, Busch because of just he was blocked by guys like Freddie Freeman and Max Muncy and a lot of other really good players into the Dodgers uniform. To come to the Cubs and have big series against your old team has got to feel nice, especially when you as the Cubs win 2 out of 3.
Oh, exactly. It's got to feel great, especially for Busch, because they say, well, he was blocked. He was blocked. Well, when you're a player and you're fighting for that position, that's not something you want to hear. He feels he should have been in that position, so it's got to feel great for him. And you said the bats woke up in the West Coast, and it's so funny because normally when we go out there, it has the opposite effect where we're just getting wailed on and we're not able to put anything together. So it's quite crazy to see, but yeah, it was really nice to see guys like Belly too hitting, because he's not having a great year. Like by his standard, he's well on his way to just having a very average season. And all the Cubs hitters really are just having average seasons, other than Busch and probably Happ as well. But overall, like, this is the downfall of the Cubs, is the inconsistency. They'll have giant spurts where they're scoring like 13. Sometimes we see giant crooked numbers where you're like, holy crap, where did this come from? And then the very next series, in this case, it went reverse. They will score no runs or 1 or 2 out of the whole series. And it's just, oh, it's so frustrating. It's been frustrating the whole year, and it's still happening, especially at the worst possible time right now. But you never know. If they could just keep going with the bats and keep winning, you never know what happens. You just got to take care of your own business. I mean, look at the Phillies when they were 7 games back with 17 to go. They were able to catch up. So you never know. You just got to take care of your own business.
100%. You just got to, what you can control is what you can control. And you got to hope the cards fall your way elsewhere in the league. And that's just the nature of the beast, especially when you put yourself up against the 8 ball, right? And we'll dive into that a little bit more, I think, once we have our playoff update here. But Nick, just quickly, solidifying your argument here about Belly having, by his standards, an average season. Still a good season by Belly metrics, right? I mean, he's a 761 OPS player this year. He's slashing 266, 330, 431. Not bad numbers by any stretch of imagination. 17 homers, 66 runs driven in 116 games. He's obviously missed time with the injury. Has 23 doubles as well. That number pretty much on par with what he did a year ago. He had 29 doubles last season. But the most notable difference is his on base is down about 20 points, which, okay, he's not a huge walk guy to begin with. He'll take walks, but that's not his game per se, right? He actually, really funny fact of all of this, he actually is taking more walks in 116 games this year than he did in 130 games last year. Not by
And
many,
he still
only
has
by
the
3.
lower on
He
base
still isn't.
percentage.
Well, he has a lower OBP because last season he had a 307 average. This year he's down to 266.
Yeah, because he's thrown.
So,
Yep.
that's the biggest difference there. And the slug is down by damn near 100 points, 525
I was
compared to
gonna say the
430.
slugging has to be a lot lower for
The
sure.
slug is really down, and I think that's where the biggest difference is for Belly this year, because even though he only slugged 26 homers last year, just that slug number was so much higher and so much more dynamic. And again, he drove in 97 runs last year. He's driven in 66 and 116 games this year. Like, that's still a nice number,
That's still good.
but
Yeah.
by no means is the Bellinger that they paid $27.5 million to, right? I think that's the biggest key when it comes to Cody Bellinger right now is you want to see the guy hit because, well, quite frankly, you're paying him a lot of money to do so. And I think there's an interesting point to be made with that, Nick, as well, because I don't know if you saw the reports, but John Heyman was asked about players opting into deals next year and opting out because free agency is slowly starting to materialize, I guess is the right word, in terms of who's going to be available this offseason. And Bellinger was a topic of discussion. And he said, more likely than not, Bellinger will opt in. He said there is a chance he could opt out. He could just take a shot on this market. Maybe he runs into a sweetheart deal with somebody. Maybe they give him a little more money. Maybe it's just a little bit more security, right? He's not having to play the year-to-year game so much. Maybe it's just a consistent effort. But at the end of the day, he's going to make $27 million next year. I would opt in too after having a down season.
He's going to opt in. Yeah.
I think we all felt pretty confident that, like, hey, if he's going to opt into any season, it's going to be this one. And then if he has a good year next year, he might forego the 20 million, knowing he probably gets closer to 25 to 30 and might get some term there as well.
Yeah.
But I think that's the biggest thing, right? With Bellinger and his opt-ins is he's probably going to opt into this deal. Let's just call it.
I agree 100%. Like you said, he's having an average year by his standards, but he's not playing to the contract. So why would he go and try to get more money when already, you're kind of like, is he worth it fully? And we had that worry last year when we're like, a lot of it has looked like lucky numbers, what this or that or the other. But I mean, with the statistics you just read off there, he's not having a bad year by any stretch of the imagination. He's just having a very average year from a guy that you were banking on being the star of your team and being that guy. So it's very disappointing. It's just a symbol of the whole Cubs team. It really is.
A symbol of the season. You're not wrong. Couple quick comments here, Nick, before we start to slowly pivot this decision here, or this conversation here. Pardon me. My dad says you live. I do live. I am back. We are back on the airwaves after a slight hiatus. Scott dropping in some playoff needs and wants. So we're going to revisit that one here in a few minutes. And Darren's got a comment. Darren's got 2 comments. I'm going to say one of them for the playoff conversation as well, because I think that better aligns with what we'll be talking about there. But the question that Darren had here is what is the date when opt-outs have to be decided? So I had to look this up because I couldn't remember off the top of my head. It's within 5 days of the World Series coming to an end. So it's pretty quick after the end of the season.
It's quick.
It really quickly tells everybody, hey, this is what your market is in terms of who's available and who's not. And I think that's going to be interesting because I have a feeling, given that Jed's got time to, he's going to have his press conference, obviously, before the end of the World Series. He's probably going to be like, hey, yeah, this offseason probably leans on a lot of guys opting in or opting out of deals. And not just with the Cubs, just in general, right? The baseball landscape. There's a lot of good pitchers that could become available if they decide to opt out of their deals. So I think that's something that everybody's going to be monitoring, because the free agent market, I think, goes from moderate to way better if guys opt out of contracts, because guys like Blake Snell could become available. Garrett Cole could become available. Like, there's some big names that could be on the market. Obviously, Bellinger is certainly one of those names where you look at the bats this year, it's Juan Soto it's Anthony Santander, and that's about it. Like, there's good ball players. Like Alex Bregman's still a good ball player. There's a lot of those type of guys, but there's none of the like. This isn't last season where it's Ohtani and it's a couple other really big names as well out there. A Juan Soto trade being in the wings. Like this year, it's the Juan Soto offseason. But the pitching market is phenomenal. So that's one thing to consider with Belly. And he says it's good that it's that soon. Yeah, it's quick. So we'll know by long before not even the winter meetings, just like the GM meetings that always happen beforehand. We'll know long before then who's in, who's out, and what holes per se that the Cubs need to fill entering the off season. Nick, you mentioned him a little bit earlier in the show, but we got to dive into this a little bit. PCA is on fire. And I haven't been able to talk about it as much. I've alluded to it a little bit on some of the solo shows that I did back in August, but now the sample size is there. Now we can talk the real numbers. And I got some stats. I got some stats from our friends over at Just Baseball. Our now friend of the show, Mr. Jack McMullen, is a part of their team. They tweeted this out, ironically, today. Or pardon me, this was yesterday. Pete Crow Armstrong since August 1st. So about a month and a half almost of baseball is slashing 325, 372, 538, which is a 910 OPS. If you hit anything above anything above 900, you are elite.
Yeah.
He's a 149 WRC plus. Just in this small window, he is 4 outs above average in terms of defensive metrics. And he is a 1.7 F4, which is 8th in baseball in that span. If there is one thing, and you and I literally, the words I'm about to repeat to you, Nick, that everybody else is hearing for the first time, you heard me directly say in the pre-show.
Yep.
If there is one silver lining to this Cubs season, it is the growth of 2 young bats, Michael Busch, who we just talked about, and Pete Crow Armstrong. PCA went from, oh shit, is this guy only going to be a defensive specialist in the major leagues? Is he ever going to be able to figure out how to hit? To this guy is blossoming into what everybody was hoping when he was the number 1 prospect in the Cubs system and a top 20 prospect in all of baseball. And to me, Nick, that totally changes Jed Hoyer's approach to the offseason, because now you have a bona fide center fielder that's going to play every day who I have no other way. I think PCA's nickname should be Taz, because he's a fucking Tasmanian devil that just causes absolute shit show chaos when he's at the plate or on the base paths or in center field.
Yeah.
Look at just this Dodgers series. He's hitting balls that are getting past guys because guys are worried about his speed. He's taking extra bases. Runs are scoring because of it. He's robbing guys of home runs. This dude is all over the place. And I am so excited at the fact that it feels like finally a Cubs prospect who was raw but had the upside is finally starting to find the upside. Like the Cubs haven't had a guy like this since Rizzo, Bryant, Baez of almost 10 years ago now.
Yeah, exactly.
Now they're there with a guy like PCA, and the numbers back it up. This dude has been arguably, if there's no other reason to tune into Cubs baseball at this point, it's to watch PCA play baseball.
No, yeah.
That's really what it is.
That's the cool thing. Yeah, that's the cool thing with PCA. He's pure entertainment. That's the great thing about him. Like you said, he causes absolute havoc out there, but I'm going to take full credit for his turnaround with the dinger picks. I just kept picking him over and over and over, and then it started to click. He started to be like, I got my confidence back after putting up a couple dingers for Nick. I'm going to go out there and just continue on this, and he has, man, but he's exciting. He's an exciting player. You're 100% right. That is something we can take away and be very happy about this season. Earlier in the season, we were kind of like a little nervous. We were like a little nervous. But I always said, if he learns to just get on base, then you have already a great player because he's gonna go first to third almost every time.
Yeah. And he's shown it. I mean, he's been an absolute treat to watch over the course of the full season. And Nick, I want to bring up just his season long stats because you mentioned how he was early in the season. I'm pretty convinced at one point he was like almost a 4 something OPS at one point in time this year. And actually we can confirm this. His lowest point at any given moment was, oh, here it is. I got it. I got you numbers. He was a 188, 238, 271 slash line at one point this season. This was as of July 2nd.
Wow.
Okay. He is now on the season up to a 243, 289, 394 slash line. Now, I know people say, well, that still sucks. Sure. But when you play 3 months of the year and you are not a good baseball player at the plate statistically, and you raise your average to be at least just under major league average in terms of OPS, that means you have hit the hottest streak imaginable.
Yeah.
And most of that has really come since like late July. It is really where his kind of upswing started.
That's when it started. Yep.
So, I mean, the fact that, and I mean, he's put together, you think about it, 107 games, 37 runs scored. You would think it'd be a lot more runs scored than that, but I guess that happens when you're hitting 8th in the lineup a lot. You're not gonna get the same run scoring numbers that guys that are gonna hit 1, 2, 3 in the lineup typically are. But 77 total hits, 12 doubles, 8 homers, 6 triples. He's almost got as many triples as he does home runs, for fuck's sake.
That's great.
I mean, he's taken 17 walks, but perhaps the craziest number of all of it is in 107 games, the dude's stolen 26 bases. Like, he hasn't even played the whole season.
That's ridiculous.
He leads the Cubs in stolen bags without a shadow of a doubt. And I'll even quickly confirm that number here. Player, hitters, give me stolen bags. Oh no, I'm sorry. Nico Horner has actually outstolen PCA now.
Oh wow.
By two. But think about that. You have 2 guys over 25 stolen bags this year, which is largely impressive for the Cubs, I think, going forward. That you have 2 guys that can steal at a ridiculous clip. Now, granted, Horner's done 28 in he's done in almost 30 more games than PCA's gotten to 26. So if you put them on an even playing field, PCA's probably got him by a couple. But
yeah.
Nonetheless, incredible numbers. 5 players on this Cubs team in double figures for steals. Cody Bellinger on the outside looking in. He's got 9. Happ with 11. Suzuki with 14. And Dansby Swanson with 16 steals today. That makes him 3rd on the team in stolen bags. But Nick, I just wanted to bring the love to PCA because he really has, as a 22-year-old, I think started to find his own. And that makes me really excited for what he's going to become beyond this season. And he's been fun to watch lately. He's a reason to keep tuning into Cubs baseball, even if you're pissed off at the team and where they sit in the standings and just how some of the other things have gone. Couple of quick comments here. Yes, Scott called me out on the Nico has 28. I just saw that now. Scott, I think, just has the stats at the ready. And I support it. I love it. I absolutely love it. It makes our lives a lot easier when we can just pull up stats in the comment section. Scott says 2 days after picking PC up in fantasy, he started to dominate. I can attest to that because I'm in the league with Scott where he did that. Yes, he did. He really did. So I think the 3 of us here can sit here and be like, oh, hey, because I will say, Ron, I got my first dinger point of the season on PCA's first career home.
On PCA's, yeah.
Which was sick because I kind of pulled it out of my ass and everybody was like, okay, Ron, really going off the wall today. I think Juice said that in the group text. It was like, all right, dude, like, you're really desperate. And it hit, and I lost every bit of my absolute shit that day. And then, yeah, you picking him in dinger picks so much, Scott picking him up in fantasy baseball, it all came together. Darren says here, past proud moment. This podcast is, I believe, to be the only one that saw PCA coming around before stats started showing it hosts and subscribers. Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of, again, because I think here it comes on tap, we have an understanding of baseball is a long, really, really fucking long season.
Yeah, it is.
And you can have a tale of two different teams. Last year's team was the same way. They were horrible through April, May, and June. And then after the All-Star break, they kicked it on and they made it interesting down the stretch.
Yep.
This team has largely done the same thing.
Exactly.
So, like, it just shows, especially with young players. And to me, I think this is truly the first real tangible evidence we have of the Craig Counsell effect. Because I don't know if PCA develops this way under David Ross. I just don't. Because I think Mike Tauchman gets at-bats over PCA if PCA starts to struggle, versus giving the young kid who clearly has the ability to become a superstar the time he needs to grow into that. And he's done that. To me, that is absolutely the first real tangible, hey, Craig Counsell did this, and this is why he's worth $40 million over 5 years, is unlocking a potential superstar by allowing PCA to just play and figure it out on his own. And I think that's huge. So big kudos, big shout outs to PCA. He's fun to watch, man. If I wouldn't feel weird buying a 22-year-old jersey, I probably already have a number 52. I got to think about that one for a little bit. I'm getting old, man. I can't just sling jerseys around like I used to. And like Jay says, yeah, he would have been benched. Absolutely would have been benched by Ross. And Darren agrees with that point. I really do think, like, I know people have been really dogging Craig Counsell this year. First off, go look at his tenure in Milwaukee. He was not an instant success in Milwaukee as a manager. But two, like he said he's going to give young players the opportunity to play, and he's done that. And at least he's lived up to that word of being like, hey, look, we know what you can be, Pete Crow Armstrong. Go be that. And he has. So things you love to see. Things you absolutely love to see. Nick, let's keep this thing pushing forward. This one's just going to be a quick kind of gloss over here. Cam Smith and Brendan Davis. This is biased. I wrote an article today over at OnTapSportsSite.com highlighting these two players. But this is really a tale of like hot and cold. Cold in the sense of Brendan Davis. Brendan Davis broke his leg. He was carted off the field on Tuesday night in the Iowa Cubs game. The dude cannot catch a fucking break.
He has horrible luck. Oh my gosh.
Like I got to read some of the article as well from Bleacher Nation talking about him getting carted off the field. And I agree with what they had to say. Like like baseball players get nicked up and dinged, and like there's the prototypical like baseball injuries. He's had the most off the wall shit happen to him in his professional career of any player that I can remember. Because it wasn't just like, oh, hey, he's got a rotator cuff injury. Oh, hey, he's got a lat injury. Oh, hey, he's got to have Tommy John. No. Hey, he's got a severe back injury that like almost crippled the fucking guy, for fuck's sake. Oh, he has an abdominal injury that requires a nasty surgery. Oh, and then he broke his leg on a baseball diamond. Like,
it's crazy.
The poor guy cannot catch a break.
He can't. I know. I thought the same exact thing. I'm like, oh, really? I felt so bad for him.
It's brutal. And I want him to be able to work out somewhere because, like, we all know the talent that's there. He's shown it on the baseball field. There's a reason he was the number one prospect in the system at one point in time. He's got all the talent in the world. The guy just cannot stay healthy. So I hope for his sake, it might not be with the Cubs. My dad with a cold comment here says release him. But they might have to make that decision because he is a 40-man guy. Like that is a legitimate off-season conversation right now for a guy like Brendan Davis. But I hope he gets picked up somewhere and gets just a shot. And maybe even if he only plays 3, 4, 5 years in Major League Baseball, even if he's not like a superstar, like I just hope the guy gets a chance to be a ball player because he's a really good baseball player. And just the odds have been against him when it comes to these injuries. But on the other side of that, Nick, Cam Smith has been like, it's funny, like people follow along with the team and like certain storylines. And I think a lot of the Cubs fan base has been very focused on just wins and losses at the big league level. And it's understandable. They're in a playoff hunt per se here down the stretch. But holy shit. Cam Smith has been my favorite thing to follow since he joined the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. He's only played 29 entering tonight. I think AA Tennessee plays this evening. So this will be his 30th game in minor league baseball. That's it. But he's advanced 3 levels in 30 games. Wow. He started at Myrtle Beach, had struggled to find his power, and then hit 6 home runs in 6 consecutive games at Myrtle Beach. And they were like, we've seen enough, go to high A. He heads up to South Bend after 15 games at Myrtle Beach and puts together pretty good numbers at South Bend. He only hit 1 home run in 12 games at South Bend, but still put together like a 901 OPS in 12 games. No big deal. High A ball season ends. They could have said, hey, Cam, you're done. Great year, man. You played 66 college games at Florida State, and you were an absolute fucking monster. If you don't believe me, go look at his numbers again. I know we're a little far removed from the draft process. I needed a refresher. The dude dominated in college. Like, he hit like almost 400 in college. It's kind of stupid. Only for him now to go to AA because they're like, yeah, keep playing baseball, kid. You're doing great. In 2 games, again, prior to tonight, because I haven't looked at the box score yet for AA Tennessee, but in 2 games, he's got 2 triples, 3 runs driven in. I think he's got like 5 or 6 hits. I mean, he's putting up, if he kept this pace up for any length of time over at AA, he would be in AAA if they had another 2 months to play. Like, that's how good he's been. And you know, my dad said it here, Cam Smith, future third baseman. He might be the third baseman of the future for this team. Like, it might get to a point where he DHs for a little while in like a year or 2 from now. And like Isaac Paredes is playing third. And then when Isaac's inevitably gone, Cam Smith's just going to take over.
He's going to be right there waiting in the wings.
Just going to rule third base for the rest of the time. If he keeps this up. Now, granted, it's a super small sample size.
Sure.
But when a guy, he did start a little bit late in minors this year, right? The draft is in July. It's essentially the All-Star break. He went to Arizona, and I think he was in Arizona for about a month, kind of working at the Cubs facilities, training, things like that. So the fact that taking a month off of like game action baseball after being drafted and advancing 3 minor league levels is legitimately impressive. So he's been fun to watch, man. I'm super excited. My dad says next year. I think it's 2 years just because he's got no minor league time. Like I think there's a world where if he keeps doing this shit, you see him at some point next year, but it won't be till later in the year. But holy hell, man, he's to me, I know a lot of people are very focused on the top 6 Cubs prospects because those guys have been in the top 100 all year. Sure. They're all in Iowa right now. They're on the doorstep. What are they going to do? Like, there's a lot of storylines surrounding those top 6 guys. I think a couple of them are going to get traded this offseason, personally. That's kind of my tinfoil hat take. Cam Smith is now a top 100 prospect because Junior Caminero graduated off the list. Let that sink in. Like, a guy already drafted in the middle of the first round, not a top 2 or 3 pick, a middle of the first round is already a top 100 prospect in baseball. That's the 7th top 100 prospect that the Cubs own in their minor league system. And he's only played 30 minor league games, and he's already raking and doing kind of stupid shit.
That's awesome.
So he to me is the guy that's going to be the most fun to watch in the minors next year. Truly. Like, I know a lot of people love Matt Shaw. I know a lot of people love these other guys. Like, Cam Smith's got the power that's actually going to make him like must-watch TV, in my opinion, at the minor league level. So he's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens there. But Nick, let's dive into some of the fun stuff now here. The playoff update, right? They are currently
so fun.
5 out in the wild card, 8.5 out in the division at 75 and 71. They have a plus 60 run differential. According to MLB.com and their expected win-loss, they should be 79 and 67. I would make the argument that should be higher They have almost a 500 record against teams above 500. They're 42-45. They are better at home record-wise than they are on the road. But like you and I briefly talked about, the conditions at Wrigley have not played to normal summer conditions at Wrigley this year. And some of that is, and this is just objective fact because I was down there for most of the summer. He literally would be like the wind just always blew in when the Cubs were at home. Like I would literally walk outside and be like, where's the wind blowing today? Because I lived 2 miles from the ballpark and it was always blowing off the lake. So I was like, okay, well, no balls are getting out of the ballpark today. And if they are, it's wherever the wind's not blowing. So, Wrigley didn't really play the way we expected it to, but now they're sitting here. They've got a chance. So you're saying there's a chance. Scott did all the crazy calcs for us here. I'm going to pull up the comment in just a hot second. Of course, I already lost it because the comment section be going off, which we absolutely love to see and appreciate everybody joining us in the comment section. Here it is. 10 out of 16 games remaining for the Mets are against playoff teams. 10 out of 16 for the Braves are also against playoff teams. But only 3 out of the next 16 are for the Cubs, are against playoff teams. And I believe that's the Phillies at the end of the month that they have on the road in Philadelphia. Yeah. The only 3 games that they have on the schedule. It's a light schedule. So, Nick, going back to your point, right, take care of your own business. They have a favorable schedule to take care of their own business. I think the only thing I'm scared of as a Cubs fan is just how hot the Mets are.
Yeah.
Because I think the Braves have kind of come crashing down to earth a little bit and are a little more pedestrian and they look beatable now. The Mets have just caught fire ever since the early part of the season and have played really good baseball ever since then. I don't know if the Cubs are going to be able to do enough to catch them. But again, take care of your own business. You never know what happens. So, Nick, I know we said it was, 3% was what you said the number was in our pre-show?
Yeah, roughly? Like 3%. I think that's nice. That's relatively nice. I mean, like otherwise it could be more like 1.7%. I mean, you got to hop some teams, so I'm sure it's closer to 1 or 2%. I'm sure, but
there's a chance.
I'm not a statistician.
But you're saying,
there's a chance.
So that'll be something I have to keep in mind. Scott filling us in with a couple more things. He says the Cubs could have the tiebreaker against Arizona, but they would not have it against anybody else in that wild card. He says you got to win every series, sweep one that gets them to 87 wins, and then you go from there. I think that's attainable. I think
87 wins is definitely attainable, and I think that's a good number to shoot for. I don't know if it gets it done.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to take at least 89 to 90 to get in.
Yeah, I think you need to go on like a God run, get to 90 run.
Yeah, but you never know. You never know what'll happen. Obviously, the Cubs have the Rockies coming up here this weekend. But Nick, just on the playoff update here, I'm gonna find a couple more of those comments. But just your thoughts. What's going through your head right now in terms of where the Cubs sit?
Yeah. It's a lot of disappointment, quite honestly, because last year we were in the same boat of wanting other teams to do bad, needing other teams to do bad, and not just being able to, take care of our own business early in the year. If we would have had a bona fide closer, someone to just shut things down and not let games get out of hand, we probably wouldn't be needing the Mets to lose, needing the Braves to fall on their face. And we would be okay. But that's the power of losing games. Like, yes, there's 162 games, but it starts to gather those losses that are good, as Tyler says, he puts them on the list. There's a lot on the list. I'm sure I can't wait to see his list.
It's a nauseating amount of games.
It's gotta be a lot. And if you take all those and you reverse it, you're obviously looking at a whole different playoff picture right now. So it's just very frustrating. I'm very frustrated with them. I'm also frustrated with just the design of the team, mainly from the standpoint of closer, but also why did we not get a better bat that you just knew would be the star? There's a lot of what ifs. You could look back. We're going to look back all off season, but it boils down to disappointment. For right now, it's disappointment. Even if you slide into the playoffs here, it eases a lot of it. Like, all that's probably going to go away for sure. But look how low your chances are. And if you would have just done a couple things different throughout the year, would have been different. But like you said, with Craig Counsell, a lot of people are coming at him. This is his first year. He's got to learn the team. You don't just become that great overnight as a manager. You have to learn, understand your team, and it takes a full season to do so. So
100%.
Yeah, I mean, next year, sometimes you got to look forward to next year.
There's always next year. Cubs
Right.
fans are super familiar with that phrase. This was from a little bit earlier. I did want to bring this up because of our PCA discussion. Scott said PCA has only played 106 games this season and should win the Gold Glove. I honestly don't disagree with that. I think his defensive metrics kind of show it. Darren says of the several different things needed at the start of the season, he said if they just had a proven closer, the Cubs would be holding a playoff spot at the moment. 100%. Absolutely 1,000% correct. It really is just like, son of a bitch. What are they going to do? But a fair point made here too by my dad. He says, but look how the bullpen has changed, right? I mean, I give Jed a lot of credit in how he's piecemealed it together and found largely, I mean, you look at the guys that they've really rode late in the season here while they've been hot. Like Drew Smiley was just kind of a weird anomaly. Like he's just had a really good season as a left-handed reliever, which is nice to have because they didn't have one of those for a long time.
Exactly.
But Porter Hodge was a product of your system that you developed, which that's a feather in the cap because you need those.
That's kudos.
Jorge Lopez, before he got hurt, was the waiver minor league deal of the century because he's been really good after the Mets let him go. And then look at Tyson Miller. He was just the odd man out in a really good bullpen in Seattle, and Jed jumped all over it, and Tyson Miller's arguably been potentially the best bullpen arm the Cubs have had all season long in terms of consistency. So
great point.
I mean, it's incredible to see what they have done, though, in that streak and over that time frame as well. Scott said this as well. He says the Mets hot streak game, 5 games and 10 wins. Yeah. I mean, they got hot and they've been hot. They've been hot for a lot of the season, and that surely plays into where they are in the standings. Nick, I have one little fun stat before we look ahead and share any final thoughts. And this is fun stat time because I was looking at this when we were discussing just the playoff scenarios and the wild card and looking at everything. I was looking at run differential just because I think the run differential is interesting. Like who's on the outside looking in that has a positive run differential, different things like that. Believe it or not, it's pretty even actually across the leagues. Like all 6 playoff teams on both sides are positive, and then you got 3 teams on the outside looking in that are plus run differential. Like it's balanced just the way it should be, as Thanos would say. But I looked at the runs scored number, and there was one that just stood out so much that I felt like I had to share it. I walked through it with you, so I know you get to hear this again, but this is for all the listeners because I thought this was fascinating. Mind you, this is as of Thursday, September 12th. It is 9:56 p.m. Central Time as I'm reading these stats, so things are going to change a little bit, but bear with me here. In baseball, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that have scored more than 700 runs this season. Now, again, this number is probably going to change because the Padres are just 1 off of that number. There's a couple other teams that are just a couple runs off. The Brewers are only 4 runs off of that number. The Royals are only 7 runs off of that number. So, like, these numbers are probably going to change in the next couple of days. So that's why I emphasized, as of September 12th, there are 5 teams in baseball that have scored more than 700 runs. The 5th team with 714 runs, the Philadelphia Phillies. No surprise there. The next highest team with 721 runs, the Baltimore Orioles. No real surprise there either. The next highest team at 730, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Not a lot of surprise there. And the second highest team in runs scored at 736 is the New York Yankees. No surprise there. The fun fact of all of this is that the Arizona Diamondbacks lead baseball in runs scored. That's part of the fun fact. Here's the other part of the fun fact. What was the number that I just said, Nick, for the second highest scoring team in the league?
Was it 700?
736, right?
736.
The Arizona Diamondbacks lead all of baseball with 802 runs scored. That's insane. That it's that large of a gap. No other team in baseball is higher than 700 outside of those 5. As of this recording, there's going to be probably 3 teams that join that number here in the not so distant future. Now, another interesting part about it. There are only, and this is of teams, I will say within legitimate striking distance, which we'll call it 10 games of the wild card. Within 10 games of the wild card. There is only one team in baseball that has had 700 runs scored against them in that criteria. It just so also happens to be the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's the weirdest stat that exists. They have the most runs scored, and they have one of the highest runs against. The only teams higher or even with the Diamondbacks at 700 runs against. The Nationals have 700 runs against, and they are 65 and 81. Who else? The Miami Marlins have 756 runs against. They are 55 and 92. The Los Angeles Angels have 704 runs against. They are 60 and 86. The Chicago White Sox have 762 runs against. They are obviously awful at 33 and 114. Holy shit, I didn't realize it was that bad.
It's that bad.
And the Colorado Rockies have 839 runs scored against them. They're 55 and 92. But literally, of all the teams that are within not even a real sniff of a wild card spot, the Diamondbacks are the only team in baseball that have 700 runs scored against them. But when you score 802, you can manage an 82 and 64 record.
Yeah, exactly. When you score that much,
it's
that's great.
It's bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers. But that was just a fun little stat that I wanted to share. And just numbers are funny. Numbers are weird. I'm a numbers guy. So I enjoyed looking through that. I just wanted to share that with everybody. That was my little fun fact at the end of the show here. But Nick, let's get into it. What's on tap? The Colorado Rockies. 3 games set over the weekend between the Cubbies and the Rockies. We get to see KB again. I don't think he's hurt, so we get to see KB again. He will be on your TV this coming weekend yet again. Pitching matchups have largely been set already. Tomorrow is a 7:40 start time on Friday night. That'll be Javier Assad against, I believe it's Austin Gomber. Yes, it is Austin Gomber. Haven't looked at that one in a while. Saturday, it'll be Kyle Freeland for the Rockies against Jamison Tyone for the Cubs. That's a 7:10 local time start. So a little bit more traditional of a start time. And then on Sunday, it'll be a 2:10 start against the Rockies. Kyle Hendricks will take the bump on Sunday. Colorado has yet to announce their starter. Have yet to determine their starter for Sunday's game. It's TBD, not TBA. So we will find out who starts on Sunday for the Rockies. Probably might be a bullpen day, or they might call somebody up, or whoever knows at this point in the season. But Nick, talk to me. They're in Coors. Ball should fly. What do the Cubs need to do to win another series?
They need to build on this Dodgers series with the bats and just put more runs up, because you can, like you said out there, you better. And then I'm looking for them to be more aggressive on the base pass. Stay with that. Stay aggressive. PCA on those bases just brings a smile to my face and probably many others. And then the pitching's just got to, stay solid to let them pick this up. But I want to see the bats really carry this and carry the momentum from the Dodgers series into Coors Field, and let Coors Field also lift you up, because you get a lot of help there with offense.
1,000%. Scott says here that Bradley Blaylock is pitching on Sunday. I don't even know who that is, but thank you, Scott, for that piece of information. I'm right there with you, Nick. Like this is the time that you should carry over your offensive momentum from another away series. Keep things going. Because of how big that ballpark is, I hope PCA has like 3 triples in this series, because I think that's actually possible because of how big that ballpark is. Maybe, hey, if there's any place that's going to happen, it could be there. But I just want them to, like you said, continue to hit the shit out of the ball. Like make these games just not even close. Like we don't need an 8-6 win. Like make it an 8-2 win. Like make it a low stress game. Get out of Dodge in terms of Colorado here with just taking care of business over the weekend, and then you return home. Like the schedule gets very favorable then. After this Colorado series, they have 1, 2, 3, 4 series left in the season. One of those is a 4-game series. Everything else are 3 games. Only one of those is on the road, and you only have to go to Philadelphia. So you're done. Your major travel's over.
Yeah.
You have the Athletics coming to town for 3. You have the Nationals coming to town for 4, and then you have the Reds coming to town for 3 to end the season after you go to Philly for 3 and have an off day. Go take care of business. Go get the job done. And it starts this weekend here with the Colorado Rockies on the docket. I hope it's a sweep. That would be the thing.
You got to get a sweep.
We would love to see it. But we will be back. We should be back on Sunday after this Colorado series. We're going to stick through it here with everybody on the way through the remaining 2 weeks now of the season. Tuesday night, I will be at the ballpark for what I know will for sure be my last game of the season. And Mr. Tyler Edmonds will be in town for what will be his last game inevitably of the season. So we'll get some ballpark just fun and goodies going on from down at Wrigley Field. And then again, 4 with the Nationals starting on Thursday next week, 3 with the Phillies starting a week from Monday, and then 3 with the Reds starting the weekend of the 28th. That starts on the 27th. That is Fan Appreciation Weekend. So if you're in the area, go get out there, go see a final Cubs game before we all fully bear down and scream "Let's go Hawks" over the course of the rest of the season here, because fall sports are right around the corner. And another reason that people haven't seen as much as me lately on Cubs on Tap, because I've had to shift my focus to worrying a little bit more about the Bears and the Blackhawks as those seasons begin to shift. Nick, before we get out of here, buddy, any quick final thoughts?
Just sweep. That's it.
I like
final thought.
Short, simple, and to the point, baby. I am a big fan. Go take 3 games against the lowly Rockies. As always, ladies and gentlemen, first off, big shout out to the comments section. As always, we appreciate the hell out of you guys joining us on every single show. You keep the comments and conversation interesting, just as Darren says here. Too bad Talkman's an outfielder. He'd be a great bat to follow a guy like PCA in the lower part of the lineup. He sure would. It gives you guys on base to drive in when it's all said and done. But we appreciate everybody in the comment section. We have all season as well. We know that the last month or so, we've been a little inconsistent with our shows, and we apologize for that. But we will amend and arrange in the off season to be better prepared for 2025. But we will stick with you here down the stretch as the Cubs wind through the rest of September. As always, we want to remind everybody, Cubs on Tap, one of 2 official shows here covering the Chicago Cubs at the On Tap Sports Network. Be sure to check out our friends over at the Dingers Podcast. You can find them at Dinger Cubs on the socials. They run every Monday night, sometimes on Tuesdays, but mostly Monday nights, right around the 8 o'clock hour, right here on the On Tap Sports Net YouTube page. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, hit the bell button. You'll know when all of our great shows go live, including Dingers and us here at Cubs on Tap. Follow them at Dinger Cubs. We are at Cubbies on Tap on the socials. I am at Loose on Tap. He is at Nick_on Tap. And follow the whole hosted gang from there. Joey Knows Nothing, Teddy Friday 270, Juice on Tap. And give our boy Bobby Foster some love as well at SilentBob_2 on the socials. Bulls, that's coming right around the corner. Bears, already in full swing. Blackhawks, right around the corner as well. Be sure to check out all those shows as well. We got those all here for you at On Tap Sportsnet. And yes, Cubs fans, we know you got friends that like the Southsiders that want to forget this season, but they're going to have a lot to talk about when it comes to the off season. So be sure to tell your friends to go see our friends over at Sox on Tap. Once again, ontapsportsnet.com, at OnTap Sportsnet on the socials, the OnTap Sports Network. Go and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Nick, it's a pleasure, buddy. It's been a long time since you and I have done a show together. Glad we were able to get on and talk a little bit of Cubs baseball. 3-3 are the Cubs in their last 6. A series win against the Dodgers, a series loss against the Yankees, but plenty of great storylines all in between. And we will be back with you after the Rocky series. And hopefully, like Nick said, we're breaking out the brooms when it's all said and done following the 3-game stretch. Jay says FTC, and in this case, FTR, the All Rockies, and
FTR, FTM, FTB,
FTA, FTN, like just everybody else on the schedule, FTP, FTC.
FTW for the wild card.
Forget FTM, because they're the ones that are keeping it hard. And nonetheless, buddy, let's go Cubbies.